Yeah, that's my contact info. Feel free really to contact me anytime for any reason. I love helping people any way I can. And yeah, I have worked with Maker Fairs since the beginning pretty much. And I make a living from TV Be Gone. And TV Be Gone is this keychain. It's got one button, it turns TVs off in public places. And that plays into what I'm going to talk about. I'm co-founder of one of the early hackerspaces in the United States called NoiseBridge. And NoiseBridge was specifically created as a place for collaboration and exploring the intersection between arts and technology. So most people think of, when they think hackers, they think, well, most people think that it's people who break into other people's computers and steal shit. That's not what we do at hackerspaces. There are other definitions of the word hacking, and for us it's taking anything in the world that exists, using it as resources, even if we're not using it in the ways that it's intended, and then improving upon our projects, whatever that might be, and learning what works, what doesn't, and sharing that. That's what hacking is all about. And that's not just for technology, it's for everything. It can be for art, it can be for food, for science, for tech, for our lives, for society, our communities, for the planet. The planet needs to use resources in novel ways and improving it and sharing it. We need to hack our world. The world needs some improvement, and we can do that. There's no clear dividing line between what is tech and what is art. And I like blurring those lines and exploring that any way I can with my life and encouraging others. According to the internet, which is the place where all truth resides, 80% of people in my country, the US, 80% are unhappy with their work. 80%. And that's incredibly sad when you consider that we spend about a third of our lives there. And we sleep a third of our lives, and we tend to dream about our day-to-day lives, and that means that we're dreaming about stuff we don't like, so that's 2/3 of our lives spent doing stuff we don't like. And in my country, according to studies, it's 4.5 to 6 hours of the average American spends watching TV with whatever little time is left. That leaves almost no time at all to explore, let alone do something you might actually find enjoyable. Something that's worthwhile. But my name is Mitch Altman. I turn TVs off for a living, and I love my job. And I wish other people did too. The world might actually be a better place if that were the case. It seems that, to me anyways, we live in a world where people are addicted to money. We're addicted to a bunch of things to divert ourselves from things that might be uncomfortable, but money is one of the primary things I want to talk about now. And like any addictive substance, money can give a rush, but it doesn't make anybody happy. At its best, it's only a resource, one of many resources. If we don't have enough resources for our basic human needs, such as like food and shelter, then it's certainly a situation that's conducive for our unhappiness. But any more money than that is needed for living a life we really want to live is probably conducive for, not conducive for living a fulfilling life. In fact, it's probably conducive for being unhappy because of all the time it takes to make that money. Time that could be much better used to do something useful and worthwhile, such as exploring and doing what excites you, what you find passion in doing. Of course, there's nothing wrong with profit. We live in a world where we need money. It is a resource. But when the primary focus is money, there are consequences. Not always good. There's no guarantee, first of all, that you'll make profit. And yet, profit, when it takes precedence over various other important aspects of our lives, making these choices, it probably is the case that the world and your life becomes worse as a result. Conversely, if the primary focus of the endeavors in your life is to explore and do what you love, whatever that might be for you, then it's probably the case that over time, you'll improve your life and the lives of those around you. And though there's no guarantee, it's not unlikely that as a result of doing what you love, you may get enough of what you need to keep doing what you love. This is possible. And this is the definition of success as I like to see it. It is also my definition of good art. And as such, I like to see myself as an artist in this light. I'll come back to that. Please consider this. Everything we create is out of our control once we put it out into the world. We have very little control over anything, but we can't control what we choose to do. But once we put stuff out into the world, it's out of our control. Since one of the more profitable industries in the world is the military, and particularly the military in my country, the US, there are many highly paid individuals whose job it is to look for new creative output from all of us, from anything, all of it, and see how it can be used for the military, in particular the US military. As such, at every company where I have ever worked, without exception, the military has come in wanting what we created. And I couldn't believe it every single time that the owners of the company agreed. What are they thinking? What's a few people's lives being destroyed when it comes to big profits? Well, I don't think anyone actually thinks that thought, but of course, we don't think that way, but the end result is the same. Our creative output is being used by our consent, explicit or otherwise, to hurt and kill and spy and exert power over others. And each time this has happened in my workplace, I quit that job to make time to do something where I can have a more positive effect. For instance, in the mid-1980s, I worked at VPL Research in Silicon Valley, where we created and developed and coined the term virtual reality. The military came by wanting one of our systems, but we actually told them no. This was a really cool group of people. We didn't want our creative output being used to help the military hurt and kill and spy and exert power over others. But the military ended up getting one of our virtual reality systems anyhow. One that I spent personally, with the help of others, 3 months of my life putting that system together. They bought it through a university lab that they funded. The military does that. And they used it as a World War III training simulator. And I helped. And then I quit that job because I really couldn't handle putting my energy into something like that. I wanted to put my energy into something much more worthwhile. I think it's really important to consider, since we have no control over what happens when we put something out into the world, it's important to consider what we work on before we put it out in the world. Cornfield Electronics, that's the company I created to put TV Begone out in the world. It's the first company in my life that I have ever worked for where the military has not come in wanting what I've created. As far as I know, TV Begone has no military applications, and that was a conscious choice. But I didn't make TV Begone, I didn't make the first one, I didn't make that to make money. That would be silly. I made it because I wanted one. I wanted to turn off TVs in public places. I really wanted to have power over this medium that has had so much power over my life and so many of our lives for so long. And it turned out that my friends wanted one too. They're my friends. They're as weird as me. And then it turned out that my friends' friends, many of them wanted it. I couldn't make one for all of them, but then it turned out that many of my friends' friends wanted them, and that's when I saw an opportunity. So I took a gamble and made as many as I could afford, which turned out to be 20,000 of them. I did the math and I saw that if I made 20,000, if I sold 5,000 over however long it might take, 5 years, whatever, if I sold 5,000, I could break even. And wouldn't it be cool if there were 5,000 people going out in public turning TVs off? Well, it turned out that I sold 20,000 in 3 weeks. And I had to scramble to create my company, which I called Cornfield Electronics, to deal with this overnight sensation. And, it sort of worked out. And it's the only way I've made money since 2004. This is the way I still make all my money. At this point, I've sold over 500,000 TV Begone remote controls. That's 500,000 people enjoying turning TVs off, rather than just leaving them on or not thinking about it. But this is the kind of thing that can happen if you explore and then do what you love simply because you love it. There's no guarantees, but this can happen. TV Begone remote controls really do work. But my primary motivation for putting them out in the world as a product was a sort of performance art piece. I kind of fantasized about making money, but I didn't think it would happen. Well, the world had other ideas. The world is a weird place. But it gives people notions, just this device physically existing in the world, it gives people notions that they may not have had otherwise. And it gives others pause for reflections, for instance, on the various aspects of TV, this powerful medium, and its effects on our lives individually and collectively. It's also a lot of fun. As with everything that I do, TV Begone is open source. That means that I do whatever I do, I share. In the whole range of human existence on the planet, which is a long time, 300,000 to 1 million years, however you look at it, sharing became part of how we survived, why we still exist as a species on the planet. If we crawled out of a cave and sat around a fire and shared some new idea with people, it's because we wanted to help the people in our tribe, our clan, whatever. I mean, this is probably the way it was, If someone said, I have this really cool idea, but you can't have it, this is my idea, that would be fucking absurd. But in the past several decades, maybe centuries, this has become the norm. That's really not who we are as a species. But with this addictive substance money, it seems to change the way people do things. But this seemingly new concept of open source is really very, very old. Sharing what we do helps not only the people around us, but it helps us. For open source projects such as mine, TV Begone, or many, many others around the world and growing fast, open source means the plans are available, usually online, quite often for free, so that anyone can make use of that. Anyone can download the plans for TV Begone, for instance, or any of my projects, and do whatever they want with it. I have it very well documented so that they can do it well. They can also hack it to do their own things, and then they share that with not only others, but with me, and I can benefit from that. Many people wonder how I can make money and make a living off a project where I give all of my ideas away. But as with all art, if we don't give it away, what's the point? As it turns out, the more I give away, the more money I make. It really does work that way. Open source is really great for this. Because TV Begone is open source, some of the best engineers all over the world became excited about my project, and they gave me great ideas for improving my project, my product, for free. Try that with a proprietary closed source product. Also, people who download the plans to make their own TV Be Gone remote control, they enthusiastically show their friends this cool thing that they made that turns TVs off in public places. That is great PR. Some percentage of those people make their own. I don't get a cent from them, but a larger percentage of those people buy my product. You just can't pay for this kind of advertising. It's too expensive, and it's free when you do it with open source. As a result of this, more people are going around turning TVs off in public places, making the world a better place for everyone, which of course is the original idea. Everybody wins. TV Be Gone, the success of all this got me invited to talks all over the place, including maker fairs and hacker conferences and schools. In particular, I love the communities at hacker conferences and at maker fairs. But even though they're called maker fairs, and even though people are showing off their cool projects and sharing them at hacker conferences and maker fairs, no one was actually making anything. So after my first ones, I got involved with these events and sharing what I love, which is teaching people how to solder, speaking English, not American, how to solder and make cool things with electronics. I love doing that. I've been a teacher a lot of my life as well. And this became very, very popular at all these events. I needed kits to teach people how to solder and make cool things, so I created a TV Be Gone kit, also open source, and many other kits, including Trippy RGB Waves kit, which I'll show you in a little bit, and that's what I'll be teaching with how to solder at workshops tomorrow, which everyone's invited to, if you like. These workshops at all these events also turn out to be fantastic PR for TV Be Gone and my business. You know, again, just sharing what I love turns out to be good for other people and me. My involvement with Maker Faire became, it just grew over time. It got to be way huge, where I'd teach 3,100 people or more how to solder in one weekend with the help of a lot of volunteers. Shortly after I was given this Maker Hero Award, the first time a Maker Hero Award was, it was actually created to give me the award, and it was actually called the Mitch Altman Maker Hero Award, which was kind of amazing. And you know, if you want to see a video of me crying for joy, you can see me accepting that on YouTube if you search for it. It was an amazing honor to be, for me to be given this award by my peers. And shortly after this, I found out that Maker Faire had sought after and received a $10 million grant from the US military. Yet again, the military wanted what me and the people around me created. I felt devastated. I just couldn't believe that yet again people said yes to helping the US military hurt, kill, spy, exert power over others. And the Maker Faire people are great people. They don't want to hurt people. They don't want to help the US military. They're accepting this money for educating kids through hands-on learning. But what are the trade-offs? They claim that there were no strings attached. But of course there's strings attached. There's always strings attached when you accept money. Is it worth it? We have to think these things through, I think. I think it's very important to think these things through. You know, when you accept money from someone, doesn't matter who they are, you change things, sometimes subconsciously. What are you likely to do that you wouldn't have done otherwise, little or big, just to make it more likely to get that funding or more funding? What are you likely to be stopping doing what you might have done otherwise because of possibly jeopardizing that funding source or more of that funding source? The Maker Faire people, like many people who accept grants, claim that the $10 million was just money. It didn't matter where it came from, it's just money. But if the source of funding doesn't matter, why is it considered an impropriety for a politician, for instance, to accept a bribe? It's merely a gift, isn't it? And the politician receiving it is a good person who will only be using the money to do good, right? After struggling with these concepts for months, figuring out what to do, I wanted to keep helping with Maker Faire, but I didn't help the US military. After struggling with this for a long time, I came to a very difficult choice, and that was to do what would feel less bad for me. And I quit helping Maker Faire, which was a huge loss in my life. But I wanted to focus on what was more positive overall for me. And as it happened, as it came to pass, the military was at a US Maker Faire showing off their cool robots. And the military was invited to give talks at a US Maker Faire in full US drag. And a few weeks ago, I was at South by Southwest, where Maker Faire had a big tent, where the big draw that was advertised all over town of why you should go there was a drone with a taser on it that attacks a man. No strings attached. But back to my workshops. During the workshops I led at these events, it led to many more invites all over the place, including artists in residence at this artist space in Providence, Rhode Island called AS220. I'd never been asked to be an artist in residence before. I didn't really know what might be involved, but I liked the idea of actually being called an artist and being able to do cool things. I didn't know what to do, so I asked them, and they said, well, we're giving you an apartment, we're giving you $1,000, and you have full use of our community and our tools. I could do whatever I wanted with that. Or I could just sit in my apartment and stare at my navel. It's up to me. So it turned out that I gave lots of workshops, lots of talks at schools, and that ended up making this project called Trippy RGB Waves, which it's an interactive art piece where it makes waves of colors as you wave your hand over them. Really simple, but I like it, and it's one of my most popular kits. My residency there spurred me on to do more workshops, and I was actually invited to be artist in residence at other places as well. But traveling got me to do workshops at all sorts of great organizations, meeting great people at hackerspaces, at schools, at museums, libraries, artist spaces. I don't make any money from all of this. I just do it because I love it and I break even from it. But I get to travel all over the world doing what I love. And again, this is fantastic PR for my products and my business. Again, sharing more means getting stuff that's good for me and helping others. I would love to see more people making a living doing what they love. I would love to see everyone in this room making a living doing what you love. If you explore and do what you love, other people will love it too. Chances are really small that that's not the case. If you do what you love, chances are really high that other people will love it too. And when people love what you do in a capitalist society, which we happen to find ourselves in, they will pay you to do it. And if you are making what you love, then you are making something worthwhile for you. And it's probably worthwhile for others, and not just some other little doodah that goes into the marketplace to be consumed. This makes life better for you and for those around you. And isn't this what art can do? I would love to see more people on our planet living lives they think are way worthwhile. At the moment, sadly, I think that the percentage of people doing this is rather small. Let's change that. If you are working a job that's just okay, or worse yet, one that you don't like, or worse yet, one that you hate, then please consider that your life is going away. Please consider exploring and doing what you might love. You might find something. There's no guarantees, but it's possible that you might make a living from it. One thing is guaranteed, however. If you don't explore and do what you love, you will not be living a life you love. It's up to you and you alone what you choose to do with the time of your life. So please choose well. There are many things that exist for jamming, things that are already out there. They're all illegal, but the plans are online for how to make good ones. And Deal Extreme sells them, even though it's illegal to buy them, for $40 US, including shipping. I wouldn't encourage people to break the law, however.
Having brushed up against the tentacles of the US military, Mike, have you familiarized yourself with their search criteria? Many years ago, my website was visited by the US military on several occasions, and I became curious. I have my own notions as to why they might have done so, but I think that you probably have much more experience in this domain.
Now, we don't have to wear a tinfoil hat to know that every single one of us who uses any form of digital communication whatsoever is being recorded. 100% of it is being recorded and being stored in facilities in the US and perhaps elsewhere. They're recording all of us, not just your website. If the software they use decides, if you can use that word, that you are a person of interest, we have no idea how that's done because it's not open source, it's proprietary. We don't know what bugs it has, and there's no recourse to get off of that list of people of interest once you're on it. Then you will actually have resources put upon you. They have resources. DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Administration, has last year $3.2 billion at their disposal for finding creative output from all of us for ensuring the superiority of US military. That's what it says they do on their website. Perhaps that was why they were visiting your website. Perhaps they thought the ideas were dangerous. Perhaps it was just software that said it was interesting, and you have no idea, no way of knowing. And no one's going to tell you. So yeah, this is a reality of our life now. It's happening because a lot of individuals are being paid well to contribute to this happening. There's 270,000 people or something like that, it was determined, that have access, because nothing has changed, to all the information that Edward Snowden had access to. That's 270,000 just with people who have access to what Edward Snowden had access to. How many people actually did something about that? One.
But 80% is not satisfying to their work.
In that situation, perhaps much greater are unsatisfied, and they may have helped Snowden collect the 50,000 documents that he gave away. But yeah, these people are telling themselves something in order to keep that money supply moving towards them. And why? Just for money? Well, yeah, this addictive thing, once you have it going, you want more. That seems to be the way it works. So, yeah, it's just out of control. There's no master plan, it seems. The NSA exists to collect information. And everyone working there for their own different motivations are doing their own part, and it all adds up to all of us are being spied on and recorded.
Yeah. On that?
You've probably heard from the other talks that we've had, we're talking about sort of loss of public funding and talking about compromise and things like that. So obviously a very different situation in the US because you don't really have the public funding structures for the arts there. And I don't think you like to compromise either very much. So could you say something about?
Yeah, so there used to be funding in the United States for arts, but very minimal. It was something like 0.01% of the GDP of the government's was for the arts. And that got cut way back because it turned out that homos and women were getting that money, and that is unacceptable to the right wing. So there's very little public funding for the arts in the United States. There's very little services that we get for our tax money in the United States. And so the way I see it, if we wait for the government to give us funding for what we think is cool and to create a life around us that's worthwhile, we're going to be waiting a long time and dying before anything happens. But money is only one of many resources. We can pool our resources in community and do amazing things with very little money. We don't need a whole lot of resources in order to live a life that we find worthwhile. And we can do that much better with supportive community, which is one of the reasons why I love going around the world helping people form supportive communities, usually in the form of hackerspaces. Yeah, and there's lots of ways of making a living, maybe not with one project, maybe a handful of projects, maybe ongoing series of projects, whether you call it art or whatever. There's ways of making a living with very little.